Muscle cars, the very soul of American performance. They weren't just machines, they were attitude, rebellion, and raw, unfiltered horsepower. The streets of the 60s and 70s weren't ruled by high-tech computers or electric motors. No, they belonged to carburetors, camshafts, and V8s with so much torque, they could shake the earth. Today, we're counting down the top 10 classic muscle cars, the legends that defined an era. But we're doing it differently. We're starting from the beginning, where it all started, and working our way to the ultimate king of muscle. Let's kick things off with the car that started it all, the 1964 Pontiac GTO. Before the GTO, speed was for Corvettes and hot rods, not family cars. But Pontiac had a different vision. They took their mid-size Tempest, dropped in a massive 389 cubic inch V8, and suddenly, a revolution was born. The GTO, short for Gran Turismo Homologado, was a marketing gamble that paid off big. It was fast, it was stylish, and it had an attitude that screamed, "Let's race." Without this car, who knows if the golden age of muscle cars would have ever happened? Next, we have the 1968 Chevrolet Camaro Z/28, the precision instrument of the muscle car world. While the big block Camaros got all the street cred, the Z/28 was built for something different, dominating the Trans Am racing circuit. Chevy stuffed a high-revving, solid-lifter 302 V8 under the hood, paired it with a 4-speed manual, and gave it handling that put many of its muscle car rivals to shame. This wasn't just about raw power, it was about control. The Z/28 was the driver's Camaro, a car that could attack corners just as fiercely as it did the quarter mile. Now let's talk about a true underdog, the 1970 Buick GSX Stage 1. Buick wasn't exactly known for street brawlers, but when they built the GSX, they built something fierce. The 455 cubic inch Stage 1 V8 was a torque monster, cranking out 510 pound-feet, the most of any muscle car at the time. This was a Buick that could embarrass a Hemi at the drag strip. Add in its bold Apollo white or Saturn yellow paint scheme, and you had a car that looked as aggressive as it was fast. A true sleeper that packed a knockout punch. Few cars can match the pure intimidation factor of the 1969 Ford Mustang Boss 429. This wasn't just any Mustang, this was a NASCAR homologation special. Ford needed to qualify their 429 cubic inch V8 for racing, so they wedged it into the Mustang. And when I say wedged, I mean barely. Ford had to widen the front end just to make it fit. With only 859 ever made, the Boss 429 became one of the rarest and most sought-after Mustangs of all time. If you saw one of these pull up next to you, you knew you were about to lose. Dodge didn't just enter the muscle car wars, they stormed in with the 1970 Dodge Challenger RT. This wasn't just about competing with the Mustang and Camaro. This was about taking things to the next level. The RT package gave you big power with the legendary 426 HEMI as an option. And let's talk about the colors. Plum Crazy, Hemi Orange, Go Mango. This car refused to be ignored. It was big, bold, and built to dominate the streets. You can't talk about muscle cars without the Judge. The 1969 Pontiac GTO Judge wasn't just a car, it was a statement. Pontiac took the already iconic GTO, added a Ram Air 304 engine, wild colors, and of course that unforgettable The Judge decal. This was a muscle car that didn't take itself too seriously, but had the power to back up its swagger. When you pulled up in a Judge, you weren't just driving, you were declaring dominance. Now we're entering legend territory. The 1971 Plymouth Hemi Cuda was a masterpiece of muscle. If the devil owned a car, this would be it. Under the hood, the fearsome 426 Hemi, pushing 425 horsepower. On the outside, wide stance, aggressive lines, and that unmistakable shaker hood. The Hemi Cuda was more than just a muscle car, it was intimidation on wheels. Finding a real one today? Be prepared to pay 6 figures. When Carroll Shelby got his hands on the Mustang, he turned it into something truly special. The 1967 Shelby GT500 was a Mustang on steroids, packing a 428 Police Interceptor V8 and the kind of handling that made it one of the most well-rounded muscle cars ever built. And let's not forget its Hollywood fame. Eleanor from Gone in 60 Seconds cemented its status as one of the coolest cars of all time. Now we're down to the final two, and at number 2 we have the 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle SS454. This was the muscle car arms race at its peak. Chevy took a big block LS6 454 cubic inch V8, cranked out 450 horsepower, and unleashed it on the streets. The result? A car that could annihilate anything in its path. And let's talk about that cowl induction hood. Functional, aggressive, and just plain cool. The Chevelle SS454 wasn't just a car, it was a statement that Chevy meant business. And finally, at number 1, we have the king, the 1969 Dodge Charger RT. This car is the very definition of muscle car royalty. You've seen it in the Fast and the Furious, the Dukes of Hazzard, and Bullitt. It was built for power, with a 440 Magnum 5.8 as standard and an optional 426 HEMI that made it a true beast. And the looks? Unmistakable. The long, aggressive lines, the hidden headlights, the unmistakable presence. It didn't just turn heads, it stopped traffic. The Charger RT wasn't just about performance, it was about personality. It was a muscle car that owned every road it touched. So there you have it, the top 10 classic muscle cars from the very beginning to the ultimate king. These cars weren't just machines, they were legends. They were built for speed, for power, and for making sure you never went unnoticed. Today, muscle cars might be more refined, more technologically advanced, but they'll never match the pure, unfiltered aggression of these classics. Because back then, it wasn't about lap times or efficiency. It was about who had the loudest exhaust, the most horsepower, and the guts to use it. That's muscle. That's history. And that's why these cars will never be forgotten.